Hi, I'm Aidan from GTG Coaching, and today I want to go over transfer of training, also known as how can the gym or the game help my performance. So how can a strength and conditioning program carry over to your sport and helping you perform better? So as usual, using my trusty assistant, the whiteboard, to explain this and break it down, and also because I love a whiteboard. What we're going to go for today is a very general approach. So this is a two-part series, general approach and then specific approach, to try and make sense of something that either is completely new to you, or maybe you just do without really giving an awful lot of thought to it. So maybe in your sport, you always use the gym and do some sort of strength training or conditioning program, but why exactly it carries over, you don't know. Or maybe you are a long distance runner and strength training isn't something you really consider, you just go out and run, which happens a lot. So a few things we've got to consider when it comes to this is, first off, doing the task gets you better at the task, okay? So you want to get better at running, run, for instance. There is a point of diminishing returns. There is a point where continuing to do that task has less and less payoff as you progress further and further. I think that's just something that hopefully everybody can understand, just from a logical standpoint. Picking up a skill, doing something you've not done before, the more you do it, the better you get at it, the less return you see. This then carries over to developing qualities outside of just doing the skill or the sport itself in order to boost your performance, and that's where the gym comes in, or a strength and conditioning program. So when we start with this, or when you start with this, we want to check and think of, like, what are the demands of the sport? So different sports have different demands. So here I have run and rug, which just means running, in this case long distance running, and rugby as the other example. Basically because running is a lot more straightforward. You just have to run, and the things you develop, there's much fewer skills and demands involved than rugby, which has a lot of qualities: speed, agility, power, strength, tons of things you have to develop. So you got to think about those things first off. The next one is, what's the injury risk? So you can use a strength and conditioning program to meet the demand and also reduce down the risk of injury. Not avoid injury, which is an important point, but reduce the chances of injury occurring. And then the next thing is, what time do you have available and what time do you have available to recover? Okay, so if you are a full-time athlete, most of your time will be dedicated towards training and recovery. But if it's a part-time passion or hobby of yours, there's less time to train and less time to recover. So you have to play the sport, do the stuff outside that help carry into the sport, and recover from it. There's also psychological demands, but we go into that in another video. Right now, we're just really talking about the physical demands. So those are the things to think about. So demands of the sport, and talking about a general approach. So there's a lot of things and qualities you want to build first off in a strength program that will help carry over to your sport and then carry over to a more specific approach. So I've drawn a pyramid here at the bottom to give a bit of an idea. So you want to build your base of your pyramid quite broad. So that means quite a lot of qualities. And then the closer you get towards competition or towards performing your sport for a specific event, let's say, you want to peak that pyramid. So really at that point, you're demonstrating specific qualities that carry over into that sport. So really what do I mean by this? Well, how focused does your approach need to be when you start off? So we're going to go with this scale here, which is never lifted, into I am lift, which basically means I've never lifted, to I lift all the time, more or less. So if you've never lifted before, uber general, basically anything's going to work at that point. And then if you have lifted quite a lot, a slightly more focused approach. So if you got to build the base of the pyramid in order to create quite a high peak, you got to develop quite a lot of qualities, but they may not all carry over. So if you've never lifted before, generally just getting stronger and doing something will carry over. You probably don't need to put too much thought into it. But if you're quite a seasoned athlete, you can't just do anything, because again, you only have so much time available, and probably only so much time available to train. So you got to be more focused with what you're doing. So you're thinking, what general approaches are going to carry into my sport? So for instance, you maybe have specific exercises that we'll cover in the next video that have a direct carryover into the skill and the demands. But a precursor to that might be building muscle mass in certain areas, and that would be building the base of the pyramid, especially when it comes to power production and force production. These things have to be built up. If not, you could probably do a bunch of push-ups if it's quite a general approach because you've never lifted before, and you'll see a return, and it's going to carry into your sport. So it depends where you are in terms of training history as to what exactly you want to do here. Also, what time do you have available to you to train? So if you are a runner that competes twice a year and you have 6 months between competitions, you can plan out your progression of developing the qualities right up until the competition you have. But if you are a rugby player, you maybe only have an off season to build muscle mass, build the qualities that you need to before you begin to peak that pyramid going into your season, so you can just keep those qualities as you perform. So it really depends on what these areas are. Those are the main things to think about, okay? So the demands of the sport, what do you need to develop for that sport, and what do you need to get out of your weight training to carry over into this. The next part of the video the next part of the series, will be talking about this from a more specific approach.